roles with Professional Swine Management, as the Associate Director of Production, M2P2, as the Director of Finishing, and at Murphy Brown in several production management positions across the Midwest. So, welcome, Matt. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today. And like Colin was saying, I'm definitely a slat level guy. I love being in the barns, talking to producers, trying to figure out where the opportunities are to continue to maximize productivity and performance out of the pigs. So, just before I get started, as I think about wean pig transition from the sow farms, I look at that as probably one of the most critical parts of all the pig production. As I think about it, we're taking pigs from a sow that weaned 13 other pigs within the litter, and we throw them all together with a bunch of pigs that they didn't even realize existed, put them on a truck through different types of weather scenarios, back them up to a chute, throw them in a barn that's either got different types of flooring, different types of ventilation, and now they've got to figure out how they can compete for food, space, and water when they haven't been accustomed to that for their whole life, right? And I explain it a lot like, we're trying to reduce the competition factor on these pigs and ensure that we get them to food and water as fast as we possibly can. The example would be taking a bunch of high school seniors and going to college for the first year, and you've got that big stud football player that was the #1 in the class and everybody liked him and yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden you throw him into university and now all of a sudden he's not the big stud anymore and he's got to figure it out, right? And so we're trying to figure out how to help that transition, right, to be able to get these pigs started. So I'm going to go through some different things that I feel over my career have been beneficial to get pigs started. And what you'll see is a lot of it is really pre-pig placement planning and the different things we do to set ourselves up for success. Doesn't mean that everything I'm going to talk about fits every scenario, but there's just some different ideas that hopefully you can take out of it. So as the agenda, we're going to talk about being prepared, about the facility management with the equipment and the environments. Day one, what happens when the pigs show up, grueling, mat feeding, and then really life after we get the pigs in the barn. So as I think about the being prepared, here's a few of the things that I'm going to discuss. And one of the things that I'd like to try to do, if at all possible, is have all in all out production, right? Get all the pigs off the site, get the barn clean, get it inspected before I bring new pigs back into the facilities to reduce the risk of having disease or bacteria, brought into the new groups of pigs, right? We all know how challenging that can be. And so as I look at the system that I'm involved with today, we're trying to right size our facilities to be able to do that cost effectively so we don't eat up a lot of space costs in that process. Depending on the throughput of a sow farm, if you're going to co-mingle pigs, whatever that management technique may be, will drive some of that decision. But at the end of the day, we're trying to figure out how we can get as close to all in all out production as possible. This time of the year, we're tight on space. Being tight on space, sometimes we got to make some decisions that don't necessarily fit this perfect, but we try to do everything we can to mitigate the risk throughout that process. One of the probably, besides the all in all out, is making sure we've got a clean facility. I would say one of the most overlooked things that I see in the industry is we get pigs to market and we know pigs are coming in and we've got all these other things that are going on in between point A and point B, and we forget to go out and make sure that we got all the matter picked up, all the facilities clean, and we're ready for new pigs. And obviously there's a high risk with market trucks that were at that facility prior that whether we wash them or we don't wash them puts risk on the new groups of pigs. So at the end of the day, what I always say is clean, right? Clean isn't having a couple crumbs on the ground, ask my wife. When I wipe off the countertop, it's never clean enough for her, but I thought it was pretty good, right? And so it's about making sure the facilities are clean. And I've just taken a few pictures here of just some normal common things that I see as I walk through barns throughout that process. You can see we've got a supplemental feeder that's dirty. We've got some manure on the slats here, some manure with the angle iron that fell off after the barn got soaked and washed. Here's a loadout, a temporary loadout chute that's got some matter in it still. This is outside of the barn door. You can see, obviously, there's matter out here. streaking on the walls, you know, and this is a heater. You know, a lot of power washers don't want to touch the heaters because they don't want to ruin the electronics in them and cause issues on that end. But whenever that heater kicks on, what's going to happen? That matter is going to start to fall off, get in the area where the pigs get contact, and there's a potential that they could pick up some sort of bacteria or virus from that. And some of the other things that I didn't put on here that I think are overlooked but are really simple as far as I'm concerned is controllers. Did we get the controllers cleaned up and wiped off? What's the first thing we do when we go to a barn? We go to look at the controller. What's the set point? What's the high lows? What's the water consumption? And we take our fingers, put them right on that controller, then we go back in and start working with the pigs. Light switches, doorknobs, door handles, you know, office, you know, medicine bottles that were left over from the previous group if we've got them. That's some of the stuff that I see is looked over some of the most because we're so focused on the barn level side of things that really, in my mind, there's a lot of risk involved with that. So, again, when I look at clean is clean, you know, we do barn sanitation, you know, prior to pigs showing up. I'll be honest with you, over my career, I had one power washing crew come out 9 times to rewash a facility. 9 times, because it was that important. And it was a pain, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, we got what we wanted, and the rest of the times that they power washed for us, they were a lot better the first time and second time after they did it. So a big part of it is the expectations that we have, ensuring we hold people accountable for doing that. And, you know, ultimately we'll get what we want, right? It's, if I have somebody come in to paint a room and I've got 4 walls and they only paint 3, I'm probably not going to accept that, right? It's no different than if I have them come in to power wash a facility and they leave manure like I just showed you here. Probably shouldn't accept that. I'm paying for a service. You know, another big part of it, and again, this is all before pigs show up, is let's make sure we got our equipment working, right? As you can check, here's somebody checking air speeds through the inlets to ensure that our inlets are working properly. We're pulling the air in the right location within the barn. We've got infiltration points here with the curtains where, you know, at the end of the day, we want the air to come through the inlets at the right speed to hit the right locations within the facility. Depending on the types of facilities you have, right, you may have areas where infiltration comes in. We need to get that stuff fixed before pigs show up, right? It's better on your energy costs. It's better for the environment for the pigs. It's just all around a much, much more efficient and suitable way to start pigs. Some of the things that I see a lot with the equipment side of things is, you know, hey, first time we start up heaters in the fall, forced air heaters, two of the 3 in a room don't work, right? Brooders sit for the last 5 months in storage or in the barn and not covered up or not cleaned, and we've got several brooders that aren't working properly. You know, we pump out in the fall, and the pump out covers don't get put back on, or the minimum ventilation fans don't get plugged in. I mean, them are some of the examples of things that I see as I look at equipment that can help us a ton. You know, there's some winterization stuff as well in the winter by covering some fans that aren't your emergency backup fans, using some bubble wrap. You know, lots of different things that we can do to help reduce the infiltration of air coming in and produce a more optimal environment for the pigs. You know, as I look at the pre-pig placement plan, again, we're still way before we even get pigs in the barn, right? We got a clean barn, our equipment's working the way we want it to work. Now we need to know what the heck we're getting, right? I want to know what's going on, what pigs are coming, what's the age, do I have the right nutrition to feed these pigs, right? Did I pull them ahead because I had a PED break, or, you know, are they 21, 22 days, which is optimal, and really aren't seeing any flu or PRRS viremia out there, and making sure that I've got the right diet for the pigs with the right environment. You know, there's the health, and also, you know, how many head are you shipping? It sounds simple, but the amount of times that I've seen a truck show up and drop off 100 extra head in the barn, now all of a sudden I'm 8% more pigs in that facility than what I expected. Now that's another management thing that I've got to work through. I got to potentially move them pigs, which is a disaster when you start thinking about biosecurity and the risk associated with that. And it is so important that we know how many head are coming, be prepared, and have them in the right locations. And then again, understanding flow trends. And so this is more, as I look at wean to finish production, you know, we know what the sow farm status is. Now we're bringing them into a wean to finish barn. What happens after they arrive, right? Do we see strep infection? Do we see flu? Do we see, some sort of PRRS activity triggering, and what's that timing, right? Let's make sure we're prepared for it. Do we have the proper antibiotics on the site that are needed? Whether it's injectable or water meds, do we have the right volume but not too much? All the little factors that are really, really key to make sure that we can do things timely in the face of when them pigs need it. Because at the end of the day, if you really think about it, these pigs are kind of like a baby, right? They have absolutely no control over anything. We control everything. We control their feed, their water, their environment. We control what we feed them, how much we water them, and we control identifying whether they're sick or not, and then what we're going to do to intervene and improve that health status of that pig, right? And they can't talk, right? I've got an 11-month-old little guy. He just likes to yell when he wants something, and I got to figure out what it is. So, and then vaccination schedules, right? Nobody wants to be surprised on, hey, are we vaccinated at the sow farm? Are we doing vaccinations in the nursery or wean to finish barns? Everybody wants to know what's going on. That way there's no surprises. They're prepared. We've got the crew out there on time to make sure our vaccines are implemented and executed at the right time. And everything should be like clockwork if we do that. Okay? Part of the other pre-pig placement plan is making sure we got the barn set up, right? Where do we have our sort pen locations? The amount of times over my years that I've seen the sort pens in the front pen with no pigs around it, I couldn't even count them, right? That is the coldest environment for the pigs. The most challenging pigs that we have that need the best environment are now placed in the most challenging environment. So not only do they have to consume to maintain their own energy needs, right? Now they've got to consume more feed, right, to be able to grow or for the heat aspect of it. So making sure we've got them pigs in the right location. I typically like to put them pigs towards the center of the barn. I don't like to put them underneath a sensor because that sensor probe is going to read cooler, and that may make a change within the barn on my average temperature, right? So I could have them pigs in the wrong location. My average temperature is going to be out of whack because, and we're going to talk a little bit about the sorting. We do day 1 and we do some day 3 and some day 7 type sorting. So I leave some pens empty on the front end to prepare for that. Okay. I don't like to keep them underneath forced air heaters. Forced air heaters pull air up. There's a potential for a draft. And I still haven't learned from when I was a kid that you hit your head on heaters when you're bending over and doing stuff and not paying attention. So the more we don't have that as a risk factor, I think the better. And then the other thing with sort pen locations, besides having them towards the center of the barn, I like to keep them on the same feeder. That way we're feeding the same feed and diet to them pigs. Otherwise, if I have big pigs on this side of the feeder and small pigs on this side of the feeder, the big pigs are going to consume a higher volume of that. And nutritionally, I'd prefer to keep them more on the same page and let that feeder go down on both sides. And I also like to have, if I have for example, a brooder on a gate, I like to have a large set of pigs on the one side of the gate and my sort pen on the other side. Them pigs are going to provide BTUs and heat units to help us out with the most challenged pigs. It'll also, pigs are social by nature. When them pigs get up, hopefully it'll help stimulate the rest of them pigs to get up as well and go find the feed and water. Because ultimately, our goal is to get these pigs hydrated, find the water, find the feed, and get them to what I would call normal production. Preheating the barn. Nothing more frustrating than walking into a barn and we just turn the heaters on and we just got the brooders lit and the truck's backing up, right? Think about how cold that environment is, right? Concrete being cold is going to make it feel 8 degrees cooler to them pigs. We're going to add some potential moisture to the barn, and now moisture with a wind chill is going to be another 8 or 9 degrees cooler. Let's make sure we've got that environment warmed up. The pigs are ready. The barn's ready for the pigs to come in. Let's not add any more challenges to them pigs than they already have, right? We talked about that challenge from the sow all the way to the wean to finish or nursery production. Let's limit the challenges that we're going to provide for them pigs. So I like to at least 12 to 24 hours start preheating facilities just to make sure that we provide a nice warm environment for them. And then showing up early, it sounds simple, but if a truck's going to be there at 10 o'clock, you better darn well be there by 9:30. Make sure you're there, you're in, you're ready. The truck shows up. There's nothing better you can do for them pigs besides get them off the truck and get them in a controlled environment now where we've got control of them, right? Get there early, be ready, be prepared, have it preheated, and do the things that we need to do after we get them off the truck. So as we look at the environmental management aspect of it, there's all sorts of different types of facilities. So I mean, we've got a ventilation training going on right now. I'd love to be in that. I love ventilation, right? But there's so many different factors that impact ventilation, and these are just a few of them I put down. Am I dealing with a nursery? Am I dealing with a wean to finish tunnel barn or a natural ventilated barn? Am I dealing with different types of flooring, whether it's steel or concrete or plastic? What's my facility size? Do I have a room that's a 5,000 head capacity, or do I have a room that's a 300 head capacity, right? All of them things have an impact on how I'm going to set up the ventilation, what my start points are going to be, and everything else that's involved with it. Brooders and heat lamps, right? Brooders are going to put off a lot more heat if they're working properly than a heat lamp, so we may need to adjust our set point up a couple degrees to compensate for what we aren't getting out of our heat lamps. And then mats or no mats. And so, mats are great if they're managed properly and for mat feeding and to control drafts from coming up from the pits and that kind of stuff. But there's multiple factors that drive where we want to set our barn at and have a desired room temperature. I'm personally a guy that likes to drive that temperature down as low as I can. I want it cool. I want to stimulate feed intake. I want to have a nice dry environment that's going to keep bacteria out, so I have less strep infections, H. parasuicis, greasy pig, and things like that. Here's just a couple examples of what I would consider optimal in a wean to finish barn, laying comfort. As you can see, typically it's one pig for about every half a square foot of mat would be the kind of the rating I'd look at. And so I like to see about 1 to 1.5 pigs deep, right? I always tell everybody I don't want them looking like they're at the beach, right? When we're at the beach, we're laying out because we're hot, right? I don't want to have a bunch of pigs looking like they're hot and at the beach because they're not going to consume as much. No different than me in the summertime, right? We aren't going to consume as much, and I want these pigs to get up, be active, find the feed, find the water, and get started. Here's some examples that I see that would be what I call inadequate ventilation. This one here is kind of the donut technique where you see that supplemental heat is too hot and then pigs donut around it because it's too hot. My optimal environment underneath that mat's about 95 to 100 degrees. And I want them pigs to lay out, like I said, 1 to 1.5 pigs deep. Here's some other examples that the pigs are piling. That's probably close to 3 deep. You can see they're piling up in odd locations within the barn. They don't have mats. You don't see any supplemental heat in there. I mean, obviously that's one thing that's driving them pigs to do that. And as we talk, now they've got to continue to consume more feed just to maintain heat, right? And energy and all the things that they need to do. So all of that stuff is just going to make it more challenging for this pig to get started. As I look at we got through all the pre-pig stuff, right? Now we're ready. Truck shows up. We're jacked up. The producer's excited. It's been 6 months since they've seen a pig. And what do, right? We mark our pens to where we want to have our sort pigs, so that way we're very, very consistent with where they're located within the barn. I know what day I sorted them pigs, and I know how they've responded to the treatments, right? And then we get the pigs off the truck as fast as we can. I like to sort approximately the bottom 10%. Obviously, that's going to vary depending on, the health status. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 25. But part of talking to the sow farm before the pigs show up determines how many pens I'm going to leave empty for them sorts over the first week. Okay? I like to place them in the designated pens, as you can see here. And then I like to gruel the pigs for about 3 days. And I'll talk a little bit more detail on the gruel. But as I look at the pigs that I sort off, it's kind of like an ICU unit, right? Them pigs, in my mind, I feel like they need a little bit more additional than what the rest of the population needs. And so I've got to do a little bit more. I'm going to give them a comfort food. I'm going to give them a gruel. It's just, I grew up in a family with 7 kids in the house. And whenever one of us kids wasn't feeling very good, and all the other kids started picking on us, never happened to me, but I liked it when it did, Mom and Dad would send me to Grandma's house, right? Because I knew Grandma would just spoil the living daylights out of me, right? She'd give me comfort food. She'd spoil me. She would do all the things to make me feel better. And maybe even feel sorry for myself a little bit, right? But that's the same thing we're doing here. It's like we're taking the pigs to grandma's house. We want them pigs to be comfortable. We want them to be spoiled. You know, they're used to a liquid diet coming from mom, right? If I'm going to try to force feed them something that's not what they're used to, and they're already stressed and challenged, it's less likely they're going to overcome that. So now, one of the drawbacks about grueling pigs, and this is why I only do 3 days, is sometimes they get addicted to it, right? Now that's their primary source of nutrition, okay? And that doesn't mean that we don't have some pigs that maybe we have to gruel a little bit more depending on the challenges. But now take me, send me to grandma's house, send me there for a week, and then bring me home and see how much of a stress factor that is getting back to what normal is. It's a lot more stressful for me, a lot more stressful for my mom and dad, because now I don't get all that nurturing and coddling and all the other things that grandma did for me and that comfort food, right? I have to figure out what normal is, right? At the end of the day, normal is dry feed and water and having a pen of pigs that hopefully you can compete with. And so that's the reason I like the 3 days. At the end of 3 days, right? Well, let me start here. I want to gruel 3 to 4 times a day minimum. The more the merrier. As long as pigs are cleaning up that gruel, I like the gruel to be consumed within 20, 30 minutes. And it's kind of like if you take a bowl of cereal and set it on the countertop and you come back at noon to eat it, it's probably going to be a little bit sour, right? I want to have a good eating experience for the pigs. I want them to come back. I don't want to cause a scour from it because I've got a sour product that they're consuming now. I want them to really come back, enjoy it, hydrate. And part of the hydration is I start off a little bit more of a water consistency to start, because that's what they're used to off of mom, right? They're all used to something that's a little bit more liquid. I want to get them hydrated, and I'll take that feed and I'll mix it up so it's all nice and cloudy, so I know they at least got some goodies out of the gruel. You know, what I've seen a lot of times is if we don't do this, you'll see your most challenged pigs, they'll go over to, like, if you got a water nipple, and they'll just suck on that water nipple like it's mom's teat. Well, it'll keep them alive, but it's not going to give them any nutritional value, and ultimately what's going to end up happening is you're going to have to euthanize them or they're going to die. And so that's why I like to do this, and then I transition it over the next 3 to 4 days down to more of a oatmeal consistency so I can wean them off and get them back to what normal is. You know, as I look at graduating in my mind is taking them pigs off of gruel, saying, hey, you're growing up now you need to figure out how to drink food and water. As I look at that, and one of the biggest things that I see as a challenge in the industry that I've seen today is if a pig's got a belly, he's feeling better. But because that pig lost some muscle tissue, and now it's got his hips showing, his spine showing, his shoulder blade showing a little bit, everybody feels better, right? We feel better because we're giving that pig gruel for a longer period of time. Ultimately, that pig's feeling good. He's got a belly. I got 29 pounds my junior year of high school, falling asleep in class and school and did all that fun stuff. I started off with 10% body fat, right? So there's no way you can cut 29 pounds with 10% body fat if you didn't lose muscle tissue. At the end of the wrestling season, I started just eating food, and I had a nice little belly on me. Guess what? My energy level was good. I was feeling good. I was running around. I might have been a little bit bony yet, but that doesn't mean I wasn't feeling good and I was started. Same way with the pigs. We want to be able to look at that belly. If they got a little belly on them, get them graduated. The worst thing you're going to do is you're going to pull them back the next day or two and put them in that gruel bed. So another part that I like is mat feeding, you know, and when I hate calling it mat feeding, it's more mat stimulation, right? I'm putting about 8 ounces of feed on the mats, and all I'm trying to do is stimulate them pigs to get up and eat and drink water. I want them pigs to get up, find the food, find the water. You know, they had all that stress. They're laying down, feeling sorry for themselves. It's kind of like us when we're sick. We're underneath the blanket, right? The last thing we want to do is go and get up and go find food and water because we just aren't feeling good. We're feeling sorry for ourselves. And this stimulates them to get up, go do that. It's kind of like if somebody gives me a half a glass of water when I'm not feeling good, and then they walk away, and I say, boy, that glass of water was pretty good. Now I'm more likely to go up and actually do something with it and get more. Same thing with this. It's strictly a stimulation. Get the pigs up, get them to find the feed and water. You know, I normally mat feed the general population for around 7 days. At the end of the day, the pigs will tell you what they want to do. And then, you know, after 14 to 21 days when the pigs start dunging on the mats or playing with them, moving them around, I'll go ahead and pull them out. But the more frequent you can do that, the more likely you're going to get the pig started on food and water. So, now we've got all these pigs in there, and we say, now we got them placed. What do we do now? What's life after placement look like, right? Well, obviously we aren't just going to stop doing everything and saying, well, you're good now. You found the food and the water. That's normal, so just deal with it, right? We're going to let the pigs tell us, right? We're going to let the pigs tell us the rest of the story. How are they responding to the things we're doing, right? I typically, right, try to pull pigs about 3 times in the first 7 days. And the reason I do that is because when I was pulling them every day, what I found is now I put competition and different bacterial and viral loads in them sort pens every single day, and I actually had less of a result out of it. So I don't know my 3-day, where 0 day starts on my 3-day of gruel. So what I've done is I've gone to a program where I say, I'm going to pull these pigs at day 1, and about 3 days post-placement, when I start to see pigs that lose their belly, I'm going to go through and I'm going to do another heavy sort for pigs that are nutritionally challenged, get them pulled. And in about 7 days, that number will be a lot less, right? Again, normal pigs, normal scenario. Every time you do that, you get less pigs, you get a lot better result. And I'm not adding fuel to that fire every day in that sort pen. So, again, and I've got them pens strategically placed around the barn to have big pigs next to them on single feeders, so that way they get the goodies out of the feed. As I look at treatments, I think of 2 different types of treatments. One is nutritional, right? We talk about the grueling and the mat feeding, getting pigs the food and water. And the other's infectious. Really, unless we've got a challenge we're facing in a normal group of pigs, my big focus on getting pigs when I come in initially is nutritional treatments. And that is strictly getting the pigs pulled, getting them in the right population where they compete for food, space, and water, spoiling them a little bit, right, like Grandma used to always do, and just help them pigs get started. And after I get through that transition, I graduate them, I've got the tape on my gates. I was out at some sites here a couple weeks ago, and I was looking at some older pigs, which I don't do a whole lot of. You couldn't even tell the difference on our day 1, 3, and 7 sorts versus what our general population was, because they responded so well to all the things we did on the front end. And so, again, the pigs are going to tell us what we do. If we've got a challenge group, we may have to pull more frequently. We might have to have more pens available. We may have to do more injectable treatments as we're supplementing with the nutritional needs that they've got. But at the end of the day, the pigs are going to tell you what you need to do, whether it's the environment, right? Do I have moisture in there? Do I need to crank a little more air through here? Do I need to lower my set point? Do I need to increase my set point? Do I need to raise or lower my brooders or my lights, my lamps? Let the pigs tell you what they need, because you'll be a lot more successful in that. And then, again, I talked a little bit about the nutritional challenges and the sorts for that, and how it depends on the health status. At the end of the day, these are some things for me that have worked very, very well to get things started. There's a lot more complex things that I know we can do, but I know what comes with complexity is variation in the processes being executed. At the end of the day, if we can't execute it, it doesn't work, right? And typically, if it's not being executed properly, it may cause me more problems than trying to keep things simple. So, anyway, if you have any questions.
Questions for Matt? Yeah, straight in front.
Matt, do you modify any of your procedures if you're going to have a double stack?
I would leave more sort pens on the front end, right? And that's a good point. The other thing I would do is I would make sure I'm putting in a facility that is suitable for double stocking pigs. Do I have the linear inches I need for a wean pig, right? A 1 inch per pig on a feeder. Do I have enough water accessibility? Typically in a wean to finish barn, you're going to have plenty of square footage, but I've seen double and triple stocks in nurseries, and it becomes pretty challenging when you start talking about your square footage for the pigs. So, but yes, other than that, everything else stays the same, except for I may have to leave some additional pens.
We had a question over here, I believe. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, you do routine pre-placement inspection of them?
every facility before pigs show up after power washing. We're there to inspect to ensure that the barn is clean and suitable. If not, we put actions in place to be able to get that done. Sidewalk chalk is great to do that because it can be washed off, right? So you take sidewalk chalk and you mark the locations, talk to the producer about the areas that need done, and then we check the equipment at that point in time.
So then, do you have any nurseries or?
Yes. Yep, I've worked with both, and we have both.
Other questions in the back?
Talking about that.
Well, I can tell you, and I like the plastic ones that are 8 pounds. They're a hell of a lot easier to get around, right? Them heavy rubber mats, to be honest with you, besides they're heavy and the likelihood that they get used the way I want them to be isn't as good. The rubber mats have strings in them, and over time, them strings are going to continue to show, and you can never get them clean. I've actually had to go and take weed burners to burn them strings off of them rubber mats before. So it becomes an issue with some really enteric potential risk every time you do that. So I like the plastic corrugated ones that are about 8 pounds.
One more if anybody's got one. If not, let's thank Matt Grimm and Cactus Farms for sharing the information. Thank you.